Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we are jumping into part 2 of the Wicked Weed IPA sampler pack. 2 in the first episode if you missed that one, and then 2 in this current. So for this last half of this IPA sampler, we have got the Hazy IPA and the Double IPA. We're going to be starting with the Hazy. This one is called Coastal Love and it clocks in at 6.3% ABV. Can art on this, very vibrant. In fact, all of them have been very vibrantly colored, and it's got this kind of 70s font on it. It's got that vibe. Looks very cool, but a nice hazy IPA. Let's get this cracked. Yet again, we're using my all-purpose kind of tulip Sam Adams glass. Get that poured right in there. I'm not going to go quite as aggressive down the middle because these have not had a problem forming a nice head. So I'll wait to the end to get a little more aggressive so we can get more of that beer in first. Now I'm just going to give it a little bit down the middle there. Yeah, no problem at all. Still formed a lush, beautiful, creamy head there. Really nice job on all three of these beers so far. Doesn't always happen poured at home. We'll set that back down. Let's hold this up visually. Yeah, okay, it's hazy, but mildly so. It's about as hazy as maybe a Berliner Weisse or a Gosa might be, or a Saison or something like that. Maybe a wheat ale. It's got about that depth of haze. It's not super hazy like some of the big hazy New England styles or milkshake styles where they're very, very occluded. It's just got a little bit of a haze. It is that true bright yellow IPA color that we all know and love. In terms of carbonation, just as with the last ones, it's mostly very fine, kind of champagne-like bubbles that are rapidly rising right up the middle and just some kind of medium small ones floating on the sides. Formed yet another great head. Let's get right over for a good sniff. Okay. So this one does indeed smell quite fruity. Kind of mangoes. I'm getting a lot of mango on the nose. And kind of some berry accents. It almost smells like a mix of mango and blueberries and raspberries on the nose. And just a little bit of underlying citrus. On this one it smells mostly kind of like orange or tangerine or something like that. It's a really nice combination of aromas. There's a subtle kind of earthy side that rides underneath this, but it's very much dominated by kind of berries and tropical fruit with that little bit of earthiness. But it smells absolutely fantastic. It looks like a textbook hazy. Let's just jump right in and see what this one's about. Oh, that's very nice. Yeah, very nice. It's got a really nice flavor profile as well. A lot of it matches kind of the aroma profile as well, which you don't often get with an IPA. But yeah, the hop blend that they used, there were a lot of elements that came through in the aroma that also come through in this flavor profile. So before we get to that, let's talk texture. Texture on this one, the body feels kind of a robustish medium. It's 6.3%. It's not as high ABV as kind of the middle of the road average, but 6%, 6.3, it is what it is. So the body, for the percentage, for this style of beer, feels exactly right. It's not super heavy, it's just a nice full medium. In terms of the mouthfeel, same thing here really. It's got exactly the right amount of resistance, exactly what I would expect. And just like with the first two, when you agitate this one around the palate, it gets very, very creamy. It feels very, very creamy, very nice texturally. This one almost gets this silky-like quality to it. It's very nice texturally. So, flavors. When I first got it in my mouth and swallowed and was kind of picking apart the flavor profile, that's where I was really kind of rather surprised. This is one where a lot of the aromatic qualities also kind of play that same part, but on the flavor profile. So there is a definite flavor of kind of orange tangerine-like quality. In this one, it's got a little bit of a rind-like quality, which is common in IPAs, though I would say this is maybe a bit more like zest. such as you would use in a confection recipe. It's not quite as bitter, pungent, bitter forward like the true citric oil or the bulk rind itself. It's just that outer extremity that's got all of those aromatic qualities in it as well. And yes, I was picking up some underlying kind of earthiness on the aroma that comes through in the glass as well. So overall, this one tastes a lot brighter, and it's really coming from this bright, fresh kind of citrus side. And some of these underlying aromas, the berries, that doesn't translate in the flavor, but there is a suggestion of underlying kind of tropical fruit. I was getting mangoes on the nose, a little bit of mango on the flavor, but it's kind of a mix of like mango and maybe passion fruit would be the best way. It's not just mango, but that mixed with like orange tangerine, really nice kind of bright, fresh flavor to it. And then this underlying earthiness, which is the driving factor for the bittering on this one. And it's not intensely bitter. It's not, 50, 60, 70 IBUs. At least that's my perception. It doesn't taste that bitter. But it's nice. It's nicely balanced for a hazy is the best way I could put it. And it's absolutely delicious. So I'm going to jump back in for a second sip, let everything re-intensify. Then we're going to talk about this finish. 3 for 3 so far for this IPA sampler. Great beer. It's funny, on second sip, the earthy bitters really came in a lot more pronounced. That's actually the first flavor I got before the citrus and the underlying kind of tropical fruit blend came into play. But it's really nice. Everything that I got on first sip, I got on second sip again, just a little more amplified by, adding more to my palate. And residually speaking here, I can really still taste pretty strongly those flavors you get up front. So it's got a big punch up front and then it settles down and it kind of holds. So in terms of kind of the arc of the ride of flavor over time, it kind of holds and plateaus for a good several seconds before it starts its slow descent. And this one, for a hazy, I would say it's probably average in terms of length. It's not as long as something that had a lot more apparent bitterness to it, which is typical. And I don't really expect a super long finish in a hazy. And this one isn't super long. I would say it's average. Where it leaves you on the back is very noticeably the mix of kind of this orange and tangerine vibe mixed with that underlying earthiness. But it's not super in your face. It's not super pronounced. It just does linger on the back of the palate until it has a very slow decay and it's gone. That's kind of how it works. So after that plateau, it's a ride down. It's subtle until it's just gone and not there anymore. Doesn't linger with any intensity on the back of the palate. As with the first two, no dryness at all. This is still nice and wet and round all the way to the end, but a very, very nice beer. So far, we've had a hazy, we've had a West Coast style, and we've had, gosh, honestly, I forgot what the other style was, but we got a double coming up next. So far, all of these have been fantastic. I'm a big fan. This one equally as so. I'm going to take my time, sip on this beer, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will jump to the second beer of today's review. That one is called Freak of Nature, and it's the double IPA that clocks in at 8.5% ABV. All right, now for the final beer in the Wicked Weed Brewing Company's IPA sampler pack, we come to Freak of Nature. This is a double IPA clocking in at 8.5% ABV. Just as with the others, it's got some pretty funky, brightly colored label art. On this one, it looks a bit more nature-like. It's got kind of blooms all over, but very brightly colored. Looks really cool. I like it. So we're going to get this cracked. And yet again, we're still using the same glass, one of my nice Sam Adams all-purpose glasses, which also keeps it consistent across all of these IPAs, which I also like. So we'll get this poured right in the old glass. We're going to start off a little slower and we'll speed it up near the end because these, at least the first three, had no problem forming a head at all. So, yep, this one's not having a problem either. We'll get it all in there. I might actually have gone a little overboard at the end, but that's okay. We definitely got it all in. Head formed just as beautifully as on the prior Double IPA, so yeah, it's got a little more depth of a gold hue to it. As expected, more fermentables. It's going to bring out more pigment from that roasted malt, but it looks fantastic. This one also, in contrast to the first three, doesn't have that really fast, fine champagne-like bubble streaming up dead in the middle of it. It's just got very slow-moving, super fine champagne-like bubbles. So all of the carbonation in it kept really tight and fine, helped it, all of them form this really nice head. The other thing that I can tell you is a bit different about this one is even though I'm a foot and a half away from this beer, I could already smell it coming out of this glass. So the aroma on this one is far more pronounced, which I do expect in an Imperial. There's a lot more in there ingredient-wise. So let's get right up on it and see exactly what we see. Yeah. All right, so this one definitely has undercurrents of this, of a lot more of the roasted malt. So it's almost got this caramelly-like kind of vibe going with it. There is still a distinct earthiness coming from the hops, and there's a little bit of a floral quality in this one. None of the other three had kind of a floral aroma, but I'm definitely getting that on this one. So it's got mixes of earth and caramel and kind of floral. Let me see if there's any fruit accents. Yet again, light citrus. This one's kind of orangey, grapefruity, and lemony. Really getting no lime, but kind of a combination of those three in tandem with the floral and the earthiness and the caramel side. So it smells really nice. It's got a very robust, pronounced aroma. It smells absolutely fantastic. Head settled down pretty well here. So let's just jump right in and see what this final and fourth IPA is like. Oh, that's really, really nice. So, doesn't happen often. I don't normally go for Imperials, doubles, triples, quads, whatever. And I've talked about this extensively because typically the higher the ABV, the bigger the beer gets, even in an IPA form, the more that the bitters get dialed back. And that is my favorite aspect of an IPA. Not just the incredible variance in the aromas and the flavor profile, but also in that bittering agent. It's the style of beer where that's most prevalent. And that's what draws me to this style. This is one of those Imperials that actually has a nice bitter hop bite to it up front. I wouldn't say for somebody that doesn't like super bitter beers that it's over the top, but if you, like me, you're a bitter hop head, you won't be disappointed with this one, especially if you drink a fair bit of Imperials, doubles, triples. You know what I'm talking about. They tend to be dialed back. This one's actually got some real oomph to it. So that added volume of malts to make that higher ABV did not kind of push back that bittering profile. It's really coming through very clearly up front. Very, very nice. In terms of the body and the mouthfeel, the body on this one is definitely a bit more robust than on the priors. And yet again, it feels exactly right to me. For 8.5% ABV, it feels exactly where I expected it to be. Kind of on the border of medium and medium heavy, before we get into the heavy territory. 8.5 is not a low ABV, but it's not sky high, and it feels exactly right. The mouthfeel on this one is exactly right as well. It's got noticeably more resistance than the prior beers, but it feels exactly right and matches the body. And mouth feel texture as well when you agitate it on the palate. This one, just like the prior, they all get very, very creamy. This, like the last one we just reviewed, the Coastal Love Hazy, also gets a very silky quality to it. So texturally and weight-wise, it feels very, very nice and exactly as I expected for the style in this ABV range. So there was a lot happening with the flavor profile here. I want to jump back in, have another sip to make sure I really get this right because it was pretty complex. And then we're going to talk about the finish, but they're 4 for 4 for my money. This is an excellent IPA sampler. All of them have been really great examples of their IPA substyles. So sip 2, let's jump in. Yeah, it comes right up front. Big kick of bitters. On this one, the bittering tastes like a mix of little suggestion of tropical fruit without really tasting fruity. It's dominant earthy, but there's also almost a richness to it. So the aromas of that caramel malt do translate into the glass. It does have a richness. It's got this caramel-like quality to the malt bill. That's very, very nice. And paired with the bigger intensity of bitters and this underlying earthiness, slight suggestions of citrus, it's really, really nice. There's really no fruit, like tropical fruit flavors I'm getting in here, but there is kind of on the back end, there is a little bit of a resinous quality to it. It's not pine, but it's resinous, it's tarry, it's almost like hop alpha extract is really what's coming through. So it's got this richness, this earthiness, this slightly resinous quality, and a little bit of this kind of citric acid, citrus rind quality to it. It's a big beer. It's a nice big double, and this one is very well done, especially if you, like me, really like there to still be noticeable bitters. The higher the ABV goes up in your IPA, you won't be disappointed with this one. It's very present, and it's not off-putting. I think somebody that maybe has just started to get into IPAs, just started to get into slightly more and more bitter, this is one you could go for and not be put off. I think this is another one of those kind of stepping stone beers, but it's very, very nice. Overall, I gotta say, I have been absolutely thrilled and pleased with this Wicked Weed Brewing Company's IPA sampler pack. These have all been fantastic. I like this just as well as the first three. So I'm gonna take my time, sip on this one, come up with my scores. When we come back, we will get both beers ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy these beers, we're going to get them ranked. So this was the part two of the 4 different IPAs from the Wicked Weed Brewing Company IPA sampler. Coastal Love, this was the Hazy IPA, clocking in at 6.3% ABV. And the second one is Freak of Nature, the double IPA at 8.5% ABV. So I'm going to try to keep this brief and just hit the critical points here. Starting with the aroma on the Coastal Love, the Hazy. Very, very nice. Had a really nice blend and combination of aromas, and even though all of these beers created a really nice head, and 6.3 is not a super high ABV, this one was quite pungently aromatic. Well above average. I think if the head was dialed back just a little bit, it probably would have come out a little more pronounced, but it was really nice. Aroma gets an 8 out of 10. 3 categories in a row, all got perfect 10 in 10 out of 10. That's taste, body, and mouthfeel, so all perfect scores there. Moving on to the finish. Finish on this beer was really just average. It's a hazy, it's a little lower ABV. Hazies don't normally focus on the bitter intensity of hops, and that was true here. Maybe this had a little bit more of a bitter kick than your average hazy, but it wasn't like West Coast style or even kind of big standard IPA at all. And that really keeps the finish from driving out longer. There's not a lot of lingering bitters on the palate. Overall, this was average. Finish gets 5 out of 10. Then all of the remaining categories from there forward, perfect 10 out of 10. That's head and retention, appearance, balance, feeling, and the intangible. That's my subjective category. And then example of the style. So that does bring the total score on Coastal Love to a 93 out of 100. Moving on to beer number 2, Freak of Nature, the double IPA, 8.5% ABV. This one got perfect 10 out of 10 in all categories except for one, and that was finish. The finish on this, I was kind of surprised that it wasn't any longer than it was, because this was a big, bold, pungent beer, and it had a really nice kick of bitters up front. This was one of the more bitter-forward, bitter-centric double IPAs that I've had recently, and I expected those to linger all over the palate and really drive that finish out. But really, it was just high end of average. I was kind of surprised by that, but it is what it is. Finish on this one got 6 out of 10, perfect 10 in all other categories, which does bring the total score on Freak of Nature to a 96 out of 100. So we've got a 93 and a 96, both well above average. And depending on what your favorite sub-style is, there's absolutely something not just between these two, but also the prior two in that sampler pack for everybody. If you're a true lover of IPAs, don't care what sub-style, you're definitely going to love this. I was really impressed with what they did. Absolutely thrilled to have an IPA sampler out in the market. And Wicked Weed, job well done. They were 4 for 4 for my money, and I would recommend that sampler pack to any IPA fan. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit the bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.